You can't love the whole of you, and nobody else gets to love the whole of you either. Hi guys, welcome to this video. If you're new here, I'm Gail and I'm an inner child and consciousness coach, and I'm here to talk to you about the parts of self that are not being revealed by you that actually are called to be revealed to yourself and to others, and to be fully embodied and embraced. So I'd like to share this little saying with you, and I really want you to remember it, maybe even write it down. They can't love what you don't show, and you can't love what you don't know. I'll say it again. They can't love what you don't show, and you can't love what you don't know. Now, what do I mean by this? So the first part about others being unable to love what we don't reveal. When there are parts of you that you don't reveal, that you hold back, that you keep locked away in a box somewhere because there is fear around sharing those parts of self with people, or the other thing is perhaps you judge them. Your mind judges those parts as weak or as unwelcome, and so you keep those parts of self hidden, but yet they're within you. They have voices and they speak. And if you really sat and took the time, you'll be able to hear them. So when we're talking about sharing with other people, and them not being able to love that, if you hide parts of self, then the other people in your world are really unable to, one, know who you actually are in your wholeness, and two, be able to meet you whenever those parts of self are asking to be met. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have a job where you are the kind of stoic, have it all together kind of person, and there's something going on at home where you're really struggling in your relationship, or you have a health condition, something like that. You know, you go to work and you play the poker face. You have the face on of, I've got it all together. This is where I thrive. Perhaps you're really, really good at your job. Yeah, there's these parts of self that are struggling. And maybe you go to work and feel like you can't ever reveal those parts of self to those people because subconsciously, or maybe consciously, maybe you have awareness of it, you don't want to appear weak. You don't want to appear like you're having problems. You don't want to appear like you haven't got it all together, because your identity, your ego, has kind of created this persona from an idea that you have to be that person in the workplace, right? So that's just one example. Now, what will happen in that case most often is that when you go to work, you'll feel like you're putting a mask on. You'll feel like you're having to play the role. But when you come home, the other parts of self are now speaking much, much louder. Now, if you have people in your life you can turn to, that's one thing. But the other thing is, I believe an authentically aligned, integrated person is able to share what's going on for them without falling into the pattern, into their victimization, or into their fear. They have that, but they're able to share that without too much resistance. I'm talking to those of you who have resistance around sharing those parts of self that you deem unworthy or unacceptable. So I'll give you another example. So perhaps you have a friend who you are very angry with, right? They've done something to you, or that's the story that you've created in your mind. And, you know, you're unwilling to go to them and explain to them that this hurts. Instead, the anger that you have within you that is actually trying to direct you forward to take some action on this, by the way, anger is not the bad guy in particular. What happens is anger ends up becoming rage, or resulting in you becoming passive aggressive, because you haven't actually met your vulnerability and you haven't spoken that truth. You don't speak your truth, and you squash it and you squash it and you squash it, and eventually one day you absolutely erupt. You call them all the names under the sun. You feel absolutely abandoned by them. However, you never say that. And on top of it, you judged your anger. So now you're judging yourself as a horrible person. You didn't want to say your angry words, but you don't really know the vulnerable truth, which brings me to the second thing that I said. You can't love what you don't know. You cannot love the parts of you that you don't meet. You cannot love your inner child if you ignore him or her. You cannot love your anger into a directive energy and know what to say if you don't don't respect it. You cannot love your sadness if you see it as weakness. And therefore, you won't allow that part of you to be expressed, and it will never be met. It will never be met by you, and it will never be met by anybody else. And it's scary to think of that, because the parts of self that are calling to you from within are actually inside of you, asking to be integrated. There's a lot of talk in the world about ego and how we must eradicate it and get rid of it, and it's just fear. No, it isn't. It's a protection system that has carried you through life, and it's done an amazing job so far, because you're here, right? You're here watching this, listening to this, and asking yourself, well, what other parts of me are there? There are many parts of you that are hidden in shadow. Shadow is not a scary thing. It's literally like a cupboard where you've parked these parts of self. You've put them in there, and they're parts of self that you judge. They're parts of yourself that your parents maybe judged, your caregivers. They're parts of self that you don't feel like belong in your environment, or you just don't really know them. You don't really have access to them. And those parts are always calling to be integrated. When you embrace your anger in a healthy way, you'll be able to take directive action and stay grounded instead of becoming so triggered by other people who maybe don't agree with you. If your vulnerability is kind of parked away, then when you're able to embrace that and express that, you're going to have a softness about you that perhaps you didn't have before when you were explaining your struggles. If love is parked away, if you really have trouble expressing love, when you embrace and embody that, you're going to find that your connections with other people are much more fulfilling, your life is more enhanced, and you really start to fall in love with yourself. Until you can connect to these parts of self, you can't love the whole of you. And nobody else gets to love the whole of you either. And that's always what your inner child is looking for. It's looking for wholeness. It's looking for belonging. It's looking for connection. It's looking for love. It's looking for your future purpose, right? And when you get aligned with all of that and you allow all of these parts in, that's when you start to get on purpose. That's when life starts to shift. That's when you start to meet people. You start to have ideas about things you want to create. You start to feel happier and more fulfilled. I'm not saying that there won't be tough times. Tough times are going to come. They are going to come. But the difference is you're going to meet them as a whole version of you instead of like a muted, split person who doesn't really know who they are and who can't offer anybody anything more than the tiny slivers that they currently embody. I want you guys to be able to embody the fullness of yourself, and that's why I love inner child work, because that for me is the foundation. I'll be talking more about that on this channel, so if you haven't already, please subscribe and like, and yeah, I'll be back with more on that. I hope this has been enlightening and interesting, and if you have any questions or any thoughts or insights on that, then please comment below and I will reply as soon as I can. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and remember, in order to shine, you must align, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.